Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, before the pandemic, when the hospitality industry was thriving, Joel Montaniel, CEO of a company called SevenRooms, which is a hospitality guest experience platform, came on the podcast and shared with me how tech was transforming the hospitality industry. And then mid-pandemic, as the industry was pretty much decimated, he came on here and spoke how they were trying to help the industry get back on its knees. And here in 2021, with the resurgence of dining and trends around both on-premise and off-premise dining, not to mention the latest proof of vax mandate in New York City, I invited Joel back onto the podcast to share what he is seeing in the industry and also the role that technology is playing. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York so we can learn more about what's happening in the hospitality industry, how technology is helping make life a little bit easier, and much more. So let's get Joel onto the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome back to the show. But for anyone that missed our first conversation and even our second, can you remind everyone listening with a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure, Neil. Thanks for having me back. I'm Joel Montaniel, one of the co-founders and CEO of SevenRooms. SevenRooms is a guest experience and retention platform. We actually just rebranded our website and redid some of our messaging. But essentially, we're focused on helping hospitality operators make their guests feel at home before, during, and after, online and offline throughout the guest journey.
And obviously, the last time we spoke was in December last year, where it was right in the heart of the pandemic. Hospitality had been decimated at the time, but so much is changing and there's so much more to be hopeful about now. But what's been keeping you up at night, busy and out of trouble in the last 9 months since we last spoke?
Yeah, just a lot of focusing on how we can help operators. It's been, happy to say since December, I think the world is looking a lot more positive. The industry is in a much better place than it was only 9 short months ago. So we've been spending a lot of time just focusing inward on the business and inward on our partners and our customers, just trying to help them continue to navigate the changing, whether it's regulation, changing environments. But luckily, I think on the whole, we're looking more positive compared to where we were in December.
And you said you've updated a lot of the messaging on your website, etc. Is that to reflect the more positive outlook as well?
I would say not necessarily. We talk a lot about, our mission hasn't changed since COVID, just the importance of it.
Yeah.
We really wanted to have the messaging on the website catch up to what we were doing in practice for our partners and for the operators. So I'd say it was really more of a reflection of wanting to make sure we could share the story, share what we could do in partnership with operators as well as we could. And so it was really more so refreshing it to tell that story.
And in the world of retail, everything has changed. There's so much talk of contactless payments, curbside pickups, and of course in dining, we're hearing more and more about takeaway services with ghost kitchens, etc. But I'm curious, what trends are you seeing in both, let's say, on-premise and off-premise dining?
Yeah, we're seeing a couple specific ones related to it. So the first one is that off-premise, which is delivery and pickup, doesn't seem to be slowing down. In fact, it seems to be picking up throughout the world. We saw a stat that before COVID, about 40%, this is a US-based stat, about 41% of consumers had done delivery pickup before. And now, a year later, that's up to 49%. So it seems to be that more and more consumers are doing delivery and pickup, either for the first time or continuing to do it. The second trend we saw, which is really interesting as well, is on-premise or in-person dining has also picked up. This is in places where COVID has been a little more tamed because of the vaccine. So in the US in particular, in pretty much most cities, most markets, indoor dining numbers are way up compared to they were, not just in in 2020, but also in 2019. So a lot of operators are having record years or on pace to have record years. So we're seeing both delivery pickup going up as well as dine-in going up. And overall, that reflects consumers are spending more money on food in general across the board.
And something else I've been reading more and more about here in the UK is the proof of vaccine mandate over in New York. But obviously, if I pick up a newspaper, look at the news on a particular news channel or where I get my information online, I'm going to get 3 or 4 different angles on that same news story. And I've always preferred to learn from someone that's working right in the heart of the industry than what I just read off the internet. So can you expand on what's happening there at the moment and the role that SevenRooms is playing there?
Yeah, sure. And it's funny. I agree. I think depending on the news article you read and the time you read it will have a different spin, if you will. And so what's happening in New York specifically is New York City released a mandate where you have to show proof of vaccine if you are to go dine in a restaurant. That I believe just got put into play last Tuesday. So just a little bit under a week ago. And so effectively, if you are a consumer, you want to go out to eat, you have to show that you got the vaccine. So obviously this creates a strain on restaurants. It also changes the number of consumers naturally that can go out to eat. In the US, for instance, we have about a 50% vaccination rate. So it's cutting out the demand for restaurants in the short term, which can be looked at as downside for restaurants. In the long term, depending on how you look at it, you could argue that it's making it safer for everyone and hopefully leading to dampening of the curve. But long story short, yeah, consumers have to show their vaccination card. Where SevenRooms is helping play a role there is restaurants can use the system to tell customers ahead of time that they must be vaccinated so they can put that through the booking process. They can send that in the text message reminder as well as the email confirmation. And then when the guest is on site, they can show their vaccine. And once they've shown their vaccine proof, the restaurant can mark them as vaccination verified or Vax verified. And that lives on their profile so that it makes it easier the next time if the consumer wants to come for both the consumer as well as for the restaurant staff.
And of course, whether that mandate is right or wrong is a whole debate for an entire podcast episode somewhere else, and a debate that will go on and on. But for businesses listening, especially in the restaurant industry, they've got no choice. They've been delivered this mandate. They've got to deliver it. It's going to take up time. It's going to harm the experience. So for any businesses listening, how does the SevenRooms vaccine status and the capabilities that you offer, how does that work? Can you walk me through a use case?
Yeah, sure. So, Neil, let's say that you book a reservation at a restaurant. On their website, for instance, you would see that the vaccination, showing your vaccination card is required, so they can have some messaging around that to let you know, let other guests know that that's required. When you book a reservation, you'll get an email confirmation as well as a text message. And in that email confirmation, they can also have language that says, as a reminder, you must show proof of vaccine in order to dine at the restaurant. This is a new, New York City mandate as of this date. And then in the text message reminder to confirm your reservation, they can also mention that. So when you check in at the host stand, they'll ask you to see your vaccine card. Once they see it for the first time, they can tag your profile as vaccination verified. So that will live with your profile anytime you do another reservation, anytime you go to a sister property if they have multiple restaurants. And then so when you dine, they know that you're safe, or they know that you're vaccinated, I should say. And then that information gets stored for future purposes for when you want to come dine in again.
I'm curious, as someone observing these changes in the UK, is there a big backlash at the moment to the mandates, or is it business as usual? What's the vibe over there?
I think we've gotten used to business as usual being backlash as well as support. Yeah. So I would say it wasn't taken lightly. At the same time, I think, restaurants are now used to the roller coaster ride that is COVID. So I'd say for the restaurants and the operators listening in the UK, I would recommend just being prepared and being flexible. I think, depending on what happens in New York, it's easy to see other countries and cities taking on some of these precautions, if you will. So I would just say be prepared and have technology that can help you track and monitor this. And then to the extent that you want to offer delivery pickup to the guests that can't dine in, being prepared to have a platform that helps you do all of the above.
And customers' needs do seem to have evolved over the last 15 months, and there's a whole heap of debates around things like contactless convenience, contactless payments, etc. But how are you seeing hospitality adapting to these needs by leveraging technology? Are there any particular trends you're seeing there?
Yeah, I would say operators are much more open to trying out new technology. I think given COVID, where they were forced to take in new technology to really meet guest needs, the contactless payment as a great example of that. In addition to some of the labor shortage that operators are facing and will continue to face in the near future, technology's really played a role to help fill in some of the gaps. So we've seen operators be more open to technology and adopt more technology, specifically when it comes to things that will help them operate during COVID times. So it'll be really interesting to see what they keep and so what stays and what goes away. And our point of view is anything that makes the customer experience better, as well as helps operators streamline and or save dollars, will stay in the long term.
And I read a great quote from you recently where I think you said, with technology, restaurants can create seamless journeys that diners prefer, from discovery to booking to the dining experience itself. But for anyone that missed that story and the quote there, can you expand on what you meant there and what you're seeing?
Yeah, sure. So to zoom out a little bit there, restaurants are having to compete not just against other restaurants, but now against a whole world of different options for consumers. So consumers during COVID learned how to cook. We saw our friends and family post all of the Instagram pictures of the food dishes they made. They also learned how to do delivery and pickup. They also learned how to get the meal kits. They learned how to bake sourdough bread for hours. I didn't do that, but a lot of people did. So the consumer is much more educated than they were in the past. And so what it means for restaurants is they're going to have to engage them through a differentiated experience, one potentially that you can't create at home. And so it starts before, during, and after. So being able to show to the consumer or share what are the experiential items that your restaurant offers. Maybe it's a 3-course tasting package with some type of tequila flight. Maybe it's something as simple as a secret menu item that you get when you come into the restaurant. So whatever it is, consumers are really looking for experiences which can be differentiated than the ones they could do for themselves at home. And so it starts with the before, which is what can you offer them? And then when they come into the restaurant, it's about the human connection, which everyone's craving so much. It's about saying, "Hi, Neil, good to see you again. It's been so long. We have your favorite table ready for you. And by the way, here's a complimentary tzatziki that we know you love." And then when they leave, being able to market, this is the after part, being able to market to come back into the restaurant with something the guest loves, or for delivery pickup, to have it at home, or a special event that's coming up. So really engaging before, during, and after in a way that's meaningful to the customer, because they have so many choices now.
You had me at tzatziki. I see it 7:30, right?
Perfect. There you go.
And obviously, the industry has gone from hell to hell and back, really, and the entire hospitality industry has been affected. We've lost a lot of people and businesses in that industry. What makes you hopeful and maybe even excited about the road ahead and helping hospitality to bounce back?
Yeah, what makes me excited and made me really excited during the really tough times in the fall and in the early spring of last year was talking to operators that had every reason to be down, every reason to say, this is not fair, and talking to operators that took the exact opposite approach to say, you know what, we got dealt these cards. We're going to use this as an opportunity, as hard as it is, to rethink our business, to rethink our approach about how we engage with our restaurants, with our customers. So it was really inspiring to talk to operators that didn't look at this as something really negative, even though it was, but really used it as a meaningful opportunity. And where I got excited, especially, was how SevenRooms could play a role. we had operators that wanted to start selling products to consumers that they had inside the restaurant, to doing that delivery meal kits, to making special experiences where you could come into the restaurant, you could have it at home, you could make it at home, and being able to sell all of that all together. So it was really amazing to see operators stand up and fight back, quite frankly, against COVID, and think about the small part that SevenRooms could play to help them reimagine their business.
And I'm curious, you've got a long list of clients there, and obviously the industry has been dramatically affected. Have you noticed a real community vibe? Are there all the companies talking together, exchanging ideas, etc.?
Yeah, we the marketing team did a great job of putting together podcasts, webcasts for the industry. And we had, for instance, an amazing operator out in Hong Kong called Black Sheep Restaurant Group give a talk about all the things they had done to really help guests through COVID. And Hong Kong saw, as you know, they saw the wave early. Yeah. So they got to share some of the experiences and some of the learnings. We had thousands of operators tune in for that across the world. It was pretty awesome to see every kind of country, every place listening in. And then later on, we had talk about ways to be resilient through this. And it didn't matter if you're fine dining, if you're casual dining, if you were, fast food. We had so many different types of operators tune in to listen to that. And then we had, hotel operators. So yeah, it's been a really amazing time to see the industry share best practices, share what they're learning. And there hasn't been a perfect answer. I think it's just sharing things to try out, and then having operators learn from that and take that into their own businesses.
Absolutely love that. And things are looking up, so it's a great positive moment to end on. But before I let you go, one thing that we've added to this podcast since we last spoke in December is I always ask my guests now to share a song or piece of music that has inspired them or helped them in their career, maybe get them through those dark times, or maybe just help them get in their head in the zone before going on stage. Is there a particular song with a story attached that means anything to you that we can add to our Spotify playlist?
Yeah, there's so many. I'm a big Spotify music person. My fiance will yell at me to turn the music down in the mornings because I'm always listening to music, and I have pretty eclectic taste. But I would say the song that comes to mind is Eminem, "Lose Yourself," and essentially it talks about the moment that you have, the one shot that you get. And so oftentimes when, we're confronted with challenges or there's something big that I'm about to go do, I'll put that song on. And it's a good reminder of to appreciate the moment and to really, really come into it, bringing your full self.
What a great choice. I think we've had over 100 people add their choices and their stories, and we've not had that yet. And I'm not sure why, because it's one of those songs that just gets you pumped and ready for anything, doesn't it? And take that shot. So a great choice. But before I let you go, for anyone listening that is hearing about SevenRooms for the first time, maybe they work in hospitality, what's the best way of getting hold of you, finding you online, or just contacting your team?
Sure. Quickest, easiest way is shoot me an email. It's Joel, Joel, at 7rooms.com. It's the number 7 spelled out. Rooms is plural. You can also go to our website and fill out any of the forms to get in touch with us or give us a shout. But please reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you, happy to learn from you and see what we can do together.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, to have you back on the podcast, Joel. We'll get you on back again in early 2022. Can you believe we're even saying that year out loud? We'll see how those trends are evolving and where we're heading. But as always, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Phil. It's a pleasure as always.
As I said in the interview, the rights and wrongs of having a proof of vaccine in order to enter a restaurant is a huge topic for another day. But what I did want to focus on was how for any business in the hospitality industry who, let's be honest, for the most part have been hit hardest, they've been unable to open for months or over a year in some cases, and they're now desperate to bring in money again. But to do that, they're being forced to operate under this new mandate, which delivers a whole range of complexities that the business owner must step up and abide by. So it's interesting to see what role technology will play in that. But over to you, please share your thoughts by messaging me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, and we'll keep this conversation going. And I am passionate about getting all sides of the story on here, so please feel free to pitch me. Feel free to send a pitch if you'd like to come on the podcast and discuss this topic or anything, or if you've got a question, whatever it may be, please keep those messages coming in. And you can also, on my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, we've got over 1,700 interviews there where we debate many, many different topics. So I invite you to check those out too. But we've reached the end of this episode, so a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.